Hello, this is Andrew Greess with Quality Equipment and Spray, QSpray.com. Today we're talking about power sprayers for your landscape business or your weed control business and some of the design problems that you really need to be aware of so that you can avoid them, because these problems cost these companies lots of time and lots of money. These are all examples of sprayers that were brought into us for one reason or another, and we just took photos so we can share some of these key learnings with you. The first thing to keep in mind is cheap equipment is very expensive. Here's a perfect example, really cheap here. Cheap tank fitting, really cheap elbow, cheap hose, cheap clamp. Every part of this is a risk, but the biggest risk is that cheap plastic fitting. You hit a bump, that elbow cracks, you dump the contents of the tank. It's not worth saving a couple of dollars by using junk like this. Here's another example of plastic fittings. This one's even worse because you can see we've got plastic fittings here going into the filter. So when you crank on that filter, the torque on those plastic fittings is absolutely going to snap those fittings, and you're going to be out of business for a while till you can get it repaired. It's also very tight in there. Here's another one. The bottom right-hand portion of this photo is the 200-gallon sprayer that a municipality bought. They actually bought 3 of these. They went out low bid, kept having problems. They called us, and we obviously didn't win it. And I was helping them figure out what the problems were. I got down on my hands and knees, looked under the sprayer, and saw this plastic junk under the sprayer. And you can see this is just a couple of dollars worth of cheap plastic PVC fittings that are going to break at the first bump and dump 200 gallons of herbicide all over the streets of this town. Again, not worth saving money in this place. They should have used good fittings here. Here's another one. This was just really cheap, thin tube steel that's tack welded. This is a 300-foot half-inch hose reel, and when that hose is full of water, it's going to weigh 100 pounds, and you're going to go bouncing down the freeway or down the road. These tack welds are just going to snap, and you're going to have tons of problems here. That hose reel is going to snap right off and hit that engine. Really cheap. You can see the white arrows there where those tack welds are. Again, you got to look for this kind of thing before you buy a sprayer, because you won't see this as a problem until it bites you in the butt. Next point, plumbing matters. A lot of people ignore plumbing, but it matters. Here's an example. This is the pickup tube inside a tank, and you can see it is so tight to the bottom of the tank that as soon as a piece of paper or any kind of debris gets in there, it's going to clog that pickup tube. And because your tank is full, you're really going to have a problem. You're going to have to get that tank empty or reach through the chemical and clear out that pickup tube. This is really badly built here. Here's another one. This was a beautiful dual tank landscape sprayer, but whoever built it put plumbing from one tank through the other one. And you can see this PVC plumbing comes right through the tank wall. There's no fitting there, just fiberglassed in. And, when this breaks, there's really going to be very difficult to repair. And the plumbing comes through one tank into the other tank. This is the return. Instead of coming down through the top of the tank, it comes through the other tank. And again, when this PVC breaks and cracks, it's almost impossible to repair, and you're going to have cross-contamination of one tank into the other. This is a little more complicated, but this is really important. This was a 1,000-gallon sprayer that a customer brought to us. The pump was destroyed, and they needed us to change the pump. But because of the way this sprayer was plumbed, we couldn't help them. So starting from the bottom arrow shows the suction. This is actually plumbed properly. There's a shutoff in the line. The middle arrow shows the return. So the pressure relief is being returned into the bottom of the tank here, and that's a really bad idea for a couple of reasons. One is diaphragm pump manufacturer requires that the return go into the top of the tank, because when you do it here, there's 2 problems. One is you got all that weight and pressure of all that water pushing back on the tank, putting back pressure on the pump, which will void the pump warranty. But 2, because you can't put a shutoff line on the return, because if someone shut it off, it would blow up. We couldn't service the pump, because both this middle line, which is the return, and the top line, which is the agitation, are below the level of the water. If we took the pump off, the water would drain, or the chemical would drain down to the level of that tank opening. And really bad design here. And this is what we did to repair it. The bottom one, the suction was correct. We didn't have to mess with that. The middle one was the return. We closed it after the client was able to dump the chemical out of the tank. They brought it back. We plugged the return and put the return back into the top of the tank where it belongs, and then at the top, the agitation, we put a shutoff valve so that if the pump ever does need to be serviced, you can shut off this line. We also, as you can see, did it all in brass, so it's not the cheap plastic fittings. But that's the kind of thing that a lot of people won't notice until it's a problem. You really need to understand the plumbing and what it means for you when you need to service your sprayer. You really want to think about operations and maintenance before you buy. This was a sprayer that was brought in for service. The pump needed service, and I'm looking at this thing, and I finally asked the tech, I go, how do you put gas in this thing? And he goes, oh man, I have to unroll all 300 feet of hose every day to put gas in it. And so whoever bought the sprayer for this guy, maybe they saved a little money because it was cheap, but when you have to unroll 300 feet of hose just to put gas in it, no one's saving any money. That's the kind of thing you have to look for. Here's another one. This was a sprayer. You can see the arrows pointing to the hose reel swivel, and the hose reel swivel needs service every year. There's some O-rings in there that need to be replaced every year, but because of the way this is designed, you can't remove this hose reel swivel without pulling the sprayer out of the truck and either removing the reel or removing whatever this is to the right. So what should be a 5-minute job becomes a couple of hour 2-man job. Just crazy. Here's another one. This was a customer who hired a new supervisor, and the supervisor said, oh, we have to go buy a sprayer from this other guy, and they did. And a couple months later, they brought it in, and you can see this was really bad design. The hose just folded over and cut off the flow to this boomless nozzle. And again, just really bad design that you need to be aware of before you buy a sprayer. A couple of thoughts. You want to think operation and maintenance before you buy. You want to get input from your users and from your maintenance team. You want to think about what the equipment will look like in your vehicle. I mean, we're going to be able to get to everything. Is this going to work? What is it going to be like to use this thing? And you want to ask the supplier, what parts are going to need maintenance? Where do we get the parts? How do we do the maintenance? Who's going to do the maintenance? You want to think about these things before you buy them, before you have a problem. And so thanks so much for watching. Please think of QSpray.com when you need a landscape sprayer or parts for your landscape sprayer. Thanks so much for watching.